What's up? What's up? It's your boy. I'm back again, and I want to talk about the fact that money has no feelings. Money has absolutely no feelings. It is simply a tool. Many people miss that concept, and it applies whether you're talking about business or personal finance. Now, business and personal finance are absolutely two different, two different beasts to tackle, but they're absolutely still absent feelings. Okay, so let's break it down. Let's start with personal finance, just because as of lately, I've seen more and more on social media with people attacking and coming at Dave Ramsey. Now, even Grant Cardone's someone, he's great. If you don't know that name, look him up. If you don't know Dave Ramsey, feel free, look him up. And I'm not name dropping here. I'm literally just trying to put out some information for y'all because these are some experts in their personal fields. Now Grant Cardone, even though he has said many times, as Ramsey has said, that, they're aware of the other person's work, it is not their style at all, but what they do actually works. It actually functions. It's actually a system that you can put together and you can do it. But there's been a lot of people coming at Ramsey as of lately. I mean, I think people have been coming at Ramsey for a long time, but it's more and more on social media because social media is real prevalent and people sharing ideas, sharing concepts, sharing little reels, little videos, little clips. And as more people share, more people have to comment and they have to argue and troll the situation. And so what it comes down to is people have this concept and idea of YOLO. You only live once, right? You only live once. You only live once, so we should have fun. We can't take our money with us, so why bother save? Well, people get this simple concept of what Dave Ramsey's teaching is, and that's save. Yeah, Ramsey definitely teaches save, but there's so much more to it than that. The basic principle idea is that he wants you to be prepared. I saw somebody post, it was a reel that I had shared on TikTok that I was like, or a reel on TikTok. It was a clip that I shared on TikTok, and when I shared it, I commented, and somebody came back at me and was like, but somebody came back at me and was talking about how, they remember their vacations, they remember all the fun times they had with their kids, and those memories will last forever, and the money doesn't go with you when you die. And this is absolutely true. Yeah, your money doesn't go with you. And yes, yes, those memories will last you forever. But the other memories that last forever are the ones that suck. The ones of the time when your car broke down and you didn't have the money in the bank to fix it. The time when you were stranded on the side of the road because you didn't have AAA, or you didn't have roadside assistance, or you didn't have the copay for said roadside assistance because your roadside assistance is only kind of good. Okay, so then you had to hit up your friend, you had to hit up your neighbor, you had to hit up your sister, your cousin, your whoever, to come and get you and help bail you out. Then you had to continue leaning on those people for days and days and days while your car was in the shop because you didn't have an alternative plan. You didn't have the money in the bank, or while your car sat in the driveway because you couldn't afford to get it fixed. This is a real thing. And yeah, for those of you that have those friends, that have that neighbor, that have that family member, we've all been there where we've been in a bind and we've leaned on somebody. Good for you, man. Like, thank God that you've got somebody in your life that'll help you out. There are, unfortunately, some people who don't have anybody, but most of us do. Most of us have that someone that we want to lean on, but at the same time, you don't want to continue to lean on them. You don't want to find yourself in a spot where you're at their mercy. You want to handle your business. So one of the basic concepts that FPU teaches, which is Dave Ramsey's courses, where he teaches the idea of, like, let's start with an emergency fund. And the reason you start with an emergency fund is two reasons. Emergencies happen. Emergencies happen. Something's going to happen. You're going to have a kid break the leg and your medical bill, your insurance only covers so much and you have to pay a copay, and that copay, if you don't have it in the bank, what are you going to do? Oh, that's going to sting. What about, like, the same thing, you blow your transmission, your carburetor, the things in your car, happen. What about, this actually happened to Kimberly. She was driving and we snapped. It was the weirdest thing. Even the mechanics looking at it said it was the strangest thing. But she literally, the rod snapped the lugs and it snapped the tire right off. She was driving down the freeway. Luckily enough, there was some traffic that slowed down. Otherwise, she'd have been going like, 60, 65, 70 miles an hour, and that could have been like a huge catastrophe. But thank God there was traffic. One of those rare times you thank the Lord for traffic. But there was traffic, which slowed her down. But she ended up, all of a sudden she felt this wobble, then she pulled off to the side, and the tire literally snapped off, and she watched it roll off into the grass. It rolled off into the grass. Weird accident. But it ended up costing us quite a bit. We had to, not only, we had to replace the rod, we had to get it remounted, it was a lot of stuff. I'm not even gonna try. But it was ridiculous, and this was several years ago. But it's like, things like that can happen. Freak accidents can happen. So ultimately, you start with an emergency fund because emergencies happen, but you also start with emergency fund because it's the most difficult thing to do. If you've never been a saver, then saving that emergency fund is challenging. So you start with $1,000, $1,000. You try to save it, and you're like, well, how am I going to save up $1,000? I got bills, I got things, I got all this stuff. I'm living paycheck to paycheck. My budget is tight. So ultimately what you do, or you got people making these excuses, oh, you don't know what the economy's like. Yes, I do. I'm in the same economy as you. You don't know what it's like trying to live on, I'm only making $60,000. I'm only making $50,000. Now, people making less than $30,000 have managed to save. They changed their lifestyle. And I hope nobody's making only $25,000, $30,000, but some people still are. Okay, so it's not about how much money you're making. It's about how you choose to live. Are you living beyond those means? And guess what? We've all been there. I've been there. You live beyond your means, and you got to make those changes to get yourself back on track. Okay? And so what you've got to do is you've got to look at your finances. You got to go through your bank statement. You got to go, what am I spending money on, and how can I start cutting it down? Like I said, remember, it's not about feelings. It's not about emotions. It's not about the memories that you're building. It's about changing your life. My mom did it. Growing up, man, my mom, we would be busted, and she made sure that me and my brother and sister, we didn't know. We had no idea we were busted. It wasn't until years and years later, as an adult, that I looked back and I was like, hey, Mom, I remember when we did this and that. And she turned it into a game, but we were broke. Something happened. And she never even told me all the stories of what happened. But there was just times when life just kicked us in the teeth. And she never let us kids know. We would be having fun. There was times we went on vacations. We did all kinds of cool stuff. We did amazing adventures. And there was other times when we just stayed put. And she turned it into an adventure somehow. She would have us, we'd roll out a blanket in the living room floor, and we'd take a walk to the park. We'd go to the park, then we'd walk on back. We'd spend half the day, goofing around in the neighborhood, then get back home only to pull out old recorded VHS tapes. Put them in each one of us, me and my brother and sister. We'd all pick one. Then she'd have rolled change. She rolled change to go down and buy some mac and cheese and hot dogs or whatever. And we'd come back, and man, the rolling the change we thought was an adventure right there. We were like, oh yeah, man, it's change night. We thought we were doing something fun. Had no idea that we were tapped. No idea. Mom made sure. So it's there's ways, and I'm not telling you start rolling change. I'm telling you that, you know what, it doesn't matter. See, we had been put in a situation where we had to fight our way back out, and Mom had to fight her way back out. And Mom did every time. She dug her way back out and always got us back into a good spot, always. But the thing is you can make a choice before you're in that spot. You can make a choice to say, hey, how can I prepare for the worst while I'm in the best? Okay, so start cutting your car. Start managing your money better, and start saving little bits here and there, and then once you get that 1,000, then you start reevaluating things again. You're like, okay, I'm at 1,000. Got 1,000 in the bank. How much are my monthly expenses? Monthly expenses $3,500. Monthly expenses $5,000. Your monthly expenses $6,000. $4,200. Whatever your monthly expenses are, say, okay, well, this is my monthly expenses. This is what I want in the bank. See, because that first 1,000 was the hardest to get to. That first 1,000 is a beast because you've never done it before. But once you've done it, it's like Warren Buffett said. Him and Charlie Munger were discussing it in a panel, and they were talking about that first million. That is the beast. Once you make $1 million, man, you can make another million. You make 2 million, 5 million, 10 million. That first million, that first 100,000, that first 100,000 is a beast. Once you've made 100,000, oh, you can get to $1 million. Once you made $1 million, you can get to 10 million. It's that first step is what the hardest one is, because people have to change their mindset. Once you've changed your mindset to save, to invest, to plan, once you've done that, it gets easier. You start getting into a rhythm. And then all of a sudden, well, you're like, well, I can tweak it a little more. I can tweak it a little more. I can tweak it. You start thinking different. And once your mind is different, you're different. So it's not about the money. It's about you. It's about your mentality. It's about where you're at and where you see things. And that's where you've got to get. You've got to get to a different place. You've got to get to a better place. So that's what you got to do. So you got to start with getting that first 1,000. Once you get that first 1,000, it gets easy. Then you get a month. Then you get a month. Once you get a month's expenses, then you go up to 3 months. Once you have 3 months, then you start taking that extra money, and instead of putting it into your emergency fund, start investing it. See, people think that Dave Ramsey's all about saving. Dave Ramsey's got money invested all over the place. Some people think Dave Ramsey's also got all of his money from selling books, telling people how to manage his money. Not true. Dave Ramsey actually made a whole bunch of his money from real estate. Then after, he got kind of dead, he got done dirty by a bank. It was a very small bank that he was getting his money from, and then they got bought by a bigger bank, and that bigger bank, closed on all his loans and was like, hey, pay us now. Okay, which sucks because it's legal. That's what sucks about it. And he just didn't know that. So he ended up going into bankruptcy and then changing his life, and then he started getting into investing and doing things again, and him and his wife built their wealth again. And now the reason that he writes these books is because he never wants people to be in that situation that he was in. He never wants people to not be prepared. So people who throw shade at him saying, well, you just don't know what it's like. No. He's not living in a different economy than you are. People throw shade at me all the time, and I'm not on his level, and that's okay. That's the thing. And people, the comments and the videos that I share, I got people commenting and people messaging me all the time, and they'll say, well, you just don't know what it's like because you don't understand the economy. I'm living in the same economy. You don't understand because you don't understand inflation. Am I, absolved of inflation? Am I not dealing with it just like you are? Inflation is not new. It's just different. That's all. So with your personal finance, you've got to start planning better, and you've got to stop being tied down to this idea of you only live once and money doesn't matter, because money matters. Money matters, but money only matters to the point that it is a tool to propel you to a better place. Okay, now when it comes to business, I know I've spent a long time on personal finance, and you know what? Honestly, we'll talk about personal finance again a later date. I have a great friend I've had for many years, and she's incredible. It's called The Family Budget. She's got an Instagram and a YouTube. Y'all should follow her on both. And she does personal finance. She does all kinds of little tips. She's very smart woman. And she does them from the perspective of a mom and a wife. She talks about, how you can just save a little bit here and save a little bit there. She gives recipes. She gives tips. She talks about books that she's read and things like that. So absolute shout out to Teresa, The Family Budget. She's amazing. So tune into her channel and tune into her Instagram. Be sure you follow. She's great stuff. And like I said, those other names that I mentioned, if you haven't heard of them before, which I can't imagine you haven't, if you haven't, look them up. They've got great content for you, and a lot of it's free. They put a lot of free. Cardone and Ramsey both put so much free content out there. Yes, you can get so much more if you actually buy their book. You can get so much more if you actually go through one of their programs, one of their classes, the 10X or the FPU. But if you haven't, you can get so much that they give you free. They give it free all the time. They give it on Reels. They give it on TikTok. They give it on YouTube. They give out free information because ultimately they're not greedy. They want money, but this isn't all they're doing. They're doing so many other things that they're wanting to see other people propelled, just as I am. I want to see people get in a better situation. I really want y'all to make better choices and all of us to position ourselves better. So now, like I said, that segue back to business. When it comes to business finances, again, money, it's not personal. It's not emotional. People get this idea sometimes. They're like, okay, I built this business, right? I built this business. I put my blood, my sweat, my tears, put everything I got into this business. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter, because you're no different than everybody else who's doing it. You're no, I mean, maybe you are. Maybe you are. Maybe the other people are slackers. Maybe the other people are really just halfway, committing to it. You can't affect what they're doing, though. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because there's thousands of others just like you trying to build a business. What's going to make you different? What's going to make you different? You got to remember, like I said, you've got to focus on your business, building up your business, being willing to spend money to make money. It's not personal. It's not emotional. Money is just a tool. So you got to look at these numbers, and sometimes it truly helps to get an outside perspective, to get a friend who's an accountant, a friend who's good at numbers crunching, a bookkeeper, something, a financial advisor, anything like this. Because sometimes you get tunnel vision. You're like, I have this vision for this company, for this business. I'm going to build this thing, and I'm going to put all my money into the product, and it'll sell itself, right? Maybe not. Sometimes you put all your money into marketing and you're like, well, the product will come because these people are going to see the vision and I'll get pre-orders and then I can build the product. Sometimes that doesn't work. You've got to have some kind of balance. You've got to have a product. You've got to have marketing. You've got to have people hear about it. You've got to have people know about it. You've got to have a service. I mean, maybe what you're selling isn't a product. Maybe it's a service. So whatever it is you're putting out there, you've got to have a way for them to see it, to know about it. You've got to have a way for them to acquire it. You've got to have something tangible that they can pay for. If they're going to pay your company, if they're going to buy from you or hire your services, there's got to be a reason. So you got to show them. You got to show them, and it's not emotion. I'm an emotional guy, so it's not like, oh, okay, well, let's completely take emotion out of what you do. No, I incorporate God in what I do. I incorporate my family in everything I do. My mom is a huge inspiration for so many things that I build. Like I put little Easter eggs. Call them Easter eggs. I put little Easter eggs in like everything I do. Everything I do has got Easter eggs. It's got a little something that is like, oh, if you know me well enough, you know that was a little reference to my oldest son, Corey. Or that was a little reference to little Colton. Or that was a reference to my lovely wife, Kimberly. That right there was a reference to my mom. Or that was a reference to God. So it's like I put little Easter eggs in things because it's my passion, okay? But I don't get so emotional that I forget that my business is a business and my money is money. Money is a tool. I don't get emotional about the money. Now, when my business is driven, like it was inspired or founded based on an emotion that I had, which is totally possible, totally legit. It happens all the time. Especially with a guy like me, you have a passion, you have a drive, you have a desire, you have something that just propels you to this particular thing that you want to build. Maybe you created something new and you created your new little device is because you were trying to make things easier for your son or easier for your daughter, or you were trying to, something that's passionate to me lately has really been on my heart for the last few years is I want to somehow make things better for nurses out there. Because yeah, I worked in a hospital before, but it's a whole different perspective when I see my wife and the obstacles that she faces in her job. I want to somehow make an impact on that. And I got some ideas in my head, but so I'm passionate. I got drive, I got inspiration, I got desire to do this, and it's based on my heart. But at the same time, when it comes to my money, it's not my heart. It's the tool that's going to make the dream of my heart real, okay? My money is a tool that makes the dream of my heart real. Sometimes we get bound by, I don't know if you ever watched Shark Tank, but Shark Tank's a good example. On Shark Tank, they've had different people come in and they're like, oh, I got this great company, this great idea, this great little gizmo that I've made and everything, and they want to put it out there, right? And then the sharks look at it, and yeah, it's great because I watch with my son, Colton. Colton gets really into it. He's really cool. And Colton's really smart, and he looks at these things sometimes, and he's like, they're not going to buy that. He's like, it's bad. It looks bad. It's just, and I'm like, it's so cool when I see him being able to, thinking that, he's gonna, man, this boy, gonna do some really crazy things, amazing things. But it's like when I see that, it's like that's a real thing. People get bogged down on these little names or these little things, and they're like, oh, well, it's a reference to my grandmother. And it's like, okay. And you'll hear like O'Leary's one who's real good about it. He's like, look, at the end of the day, Is it more important that you have this tied down to this specific name that we believe is a bad name? It's not going to market well. We've been in the business for a while. It's not going to market well. Or is it better that we get this product out there where it can actually do the things and it can still be inspired by your grandmother or your whatever, you know? And it's like, that's the thing that, you know, we get trapped sometimes. When you're someone like Richard Branson, who's got a company like Virgin. A company like Virgin, it's Virgin. And Virgin has done so many things, record, mobile, Virgin Space. But he's Richard Branson. He's a billionaire. He is perfectly able to say, I'm branching my huge company that is already a household name into a new platform, into a new avenue. That doesn't mean he doesn't also invest in small companies. He invests in many, many small companies. He totally funded the Lovesac when Lovesac when Lovesac went from a very small sole proprietorship. He funded its advancement. It was really cool. He's funded lots of different companies. He's invested in lots of different companies, but his big company is Virgin. And because of Virgin, he's able to branch out into other avenues because everybody knows who Virgin is. So when you hear, oh man, Virgin's going mobile, oh, that's cool. And it's like some people were real quick to be like, I'm gonna go get a Virgin Mobile. Virgin Mobile was kind of iffy, but it doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? Plain and simple fact is he's able to do that because he's known. Now, if you have a company and you're trying to, you know, dip your hands in multiple pots at once, right? So you got all these different companies that you're looking at, and you're like, man, I got these ideas. Okay, I'm growing this one. I'm developing this one. This one, I got some product out there that's really good. I'm marketing it, and I've actually hired 2 people to help run the company. So it's time for me to actually, you know, spread out into this other, you know, diversify, man. I got this other idea. I've been on the back burner. I got to do this. Okay, so fine. Okay, so you start working on that second idea, right? And then you're like, okay, well now I got this third idea, right? Okay, so as you got these ideas, you may not have a company that company may be doing great, but it may not transfer to be all these are subsidiaries of that company. Sometimes you've got to be willing to do some research, talk to some friends and family. Friends and family, they're just people. They're just people. Some of them have some business background. Some of them may not have any business background. But at the end of the day, I bet you they can tell you an honest opinion. And it's like, hey, man, I was thinking about, I got this company, whatever, and I'm thinking about making this a subsidiary of that. I think that's got completely different products. How is that? Well, they're both mine, though. They're both mine, and that was built off of my name, so I'm going to keep this one part of my name, too. Yeah, but how many people know you? I mean, you're really known on the West Coast, but aside from the West Coast, you haven't even gone national yet. Okay, see, these are things you got to think about. And when it comes to your money, not emotions. Not emotions. You got to be willing to put forth the money to invest into your business, to invest in the marketing, to invest in the product, but also be willing to change it up. Don't be scared to put out the money to build a separate LLC. There's a great guy that me and Kimberly both worked with. He literally, each time he had a big new project, he set up a whole new LLC because he was like, man, I'm branching off into a new city over here. This new city over here, he's like, I'm setting up a new LLC just for that city because he was a developer. And so he was like, well, I'm just setting up an LLC just for that. That way this company has nothing to do with that company because I'm partnering with completely different builders over there, partnering with completely different contractors, completely different permits. I'm going through so many different things over there that I'm going through over here. I don't want these two to affect each other. It costed him money. It costed him time to set up LLCs, to build separate businesses. But it was worth that money because he protected what was working by not mixing it with what wasn't working. Or what was new. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. Obviously, you're not going into a business expecting it to fail, but you don't want to risk what's working for something that you don't know how it's going to pan out because it's something different. Now, when it was just separate build sites, I mean, there was times that I was like, man, I think he's overdoing this. But he knew what he was doing. He was trying to diversify his companies. he was making different companies because there was completely different rules, building in different cities and stuff like that. And he just had his own system. So that's fine. That's fine. I can't say he was wrong. What I can say is that what you need to take away from this situation is just the idea that it's worth putting forth the effort and the time and the money to not be so attached to something if it's not going to boost your business. When you're building a business, it's like, okay, this is working. I'm ready to do this over here. Do these need to be tied together? Is it going to be beneficial for them to be tied together? If it's not, then spend the time and money to make it something different. Don't be emotional about it. You got to get your emotions out of money. Money's not emotional. Money's not emotional. My uncle used to tell me all the time, like, people would ask, and I thought it was weird. I was a teenager, and people would ask, oh, well, you know, you're running your own business, so how much money are you making? He would just tell them. I'm like, man, you just told him about your business, you know? I was a teenager. It was weird to me because, like, I had never heard, like, I had no idea how much my mom made. I had no much money my stepdad made. My mom had worked off and on, like, my whole life. There was certain times, gaps where she didn't work, but most of the time she worked. And sometimes she worked a couple of jobs, and never had any idea how much she was making. So for my uncle just to say it right in front of me to just a random guy that was, he had some guy, the first time I heard it, I think he had some guy come into his house and shampoo his carpets. And this guy, he had met him, he just met him in the neighborhood, and he made his own elixir or whatever to shampoo carpets. And he came in there and he shampooed his carpets, and he was like, man, so what do you do? And he's like, oh man, he's like, he was a reseller, man. He flipped on eBay. And so he's like, man, I sell on eBay, man. He's like, oh, dude, you sell on eBay? He's like, oh, that's interesting, man. So how much you make? And he's like, man, I'm making like 60K. He's like, whoa. He's like, that's pretty sweet. I mean, this was back in like 90s, and he was making 50, 60K easy off of selling on eBay. And so he wasn't shy about it. He was just like, this is what I make, this is what I do, you know? And I was like, and I thought it was weird. And he was like, Corey. And he told me, he just looked at me. I was like, why would you just, how do you know this guy? And he's like, oh, well, he's like, we met, and he said he was going to do my carpet. I was like, so, and you just tell him about your money? And he's like, money's not personal. People think money's personal, but it's not. He's like, you want to ask me about what I'm doing with my money? You want to ask me what's going on with me and my wife? You want to ask me about my kids? He's like, that's personal. You ask me about money? Money's not personal. Money's just money. It's only personal if you let it be personal. At the end of the day, it's not personal. It's not emotions. It's completely emotionless. It's a tool. That's all it is. Let's remember that money is a tool, and let's utilize it for the tool that it is and help us to get to where we're going, whether it be in your business, your personal life with your family, or whatever. Let's get where we're going. If y'all got any other tips or ideas or anybody else that you think is great, because I did drop a few names throughout this video. If you got somebody else you'd like to drop them below. It's your boy, CoreyB. Y'all give me some love. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, ding your bell, and stay tuned. I got more coming at you.